Thank you for staying with us. Now, Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo have reached a draft peace agreement brokered by the US and Qatar aimed at ending decades of conflict in eastern DR Congo. The deal calls for the disengagement, disarmament, and conditional integration of armed groups, including the M23 rebels who have taken control of key cities this year. It also includes plans for a joint security mechanism to prevent future violence and potentially unlock billions in Western investment in the mineral-rich region. Now, despite the breakthrough, several key issues remain unresolved. It's unclear whether M23 will actually withdraw, if Rwanda will admit to and remove any troops in eastern DRC, and who will disarm groups like the FDLR after years of failed attempts. There are also questions about the return of refugees, humanitarian access, and whether this agreement will succeed where others have failed. But with formal signing expected next week, the critical question people are asking is, will this deal deliver lasting peace? Now, on the show today, I'm joined by Maurice Carney. He's an executive director, Friends of the Congo in Washington, D.C., to speak on this. Thank you so much, Maurice, for joining us at this time.
Pleasure. My pleasure. It's good to be with you.
It's a pleasure to have you. Now, can you tell us, what are the main provisions? We know this has actually been a long time coming. What are the main provisions of, this draft peace agreement? And how binding do you think this draft would be?
Well, we know the provisions from what has been shared by the U.S. State Department. We haven't seen the details of it. In fact, last week, we had Friends of the Congo invited 4 Congolese women leaders to Washington, D.C. To engage with policymakers and elected officials in an effort to find out what the details of the peace agreement and subsequent minerals deal that's on the table are. And that the fact that these women had to come to Washington indicates the part of the challenge with what's being crafted, in that the local Congolese community, the civil society, the women, those most afflicted by the conflict, are not a part of the discussion. Their recommendations and ideas and suggestions, they haven't had a hearing for it. That's why they had to come to Washington. Based on what's been reported, based on what's been reported, what is a part of the deal is for Rwanda to remove its soldiers from the Congo, for the M23 militia to be integrated into the Congolese military and Congolese institutions, for humanitarian corridor to be opened up so that humanitarian aid can be delivered to people in the east in the occupied territories, for there to be a framework for economic regional integration, so U.S. investment dollars can come in, for there to be a joint effort between the Rwandan government and the Congolese government in going after forces like the Democratic Forces for the Liberation of Rwanda, the FDLR. So these are some of the elements that's been put on the table. However, you said something in the introduction, that the peace deal is supposed to deal with Rwanda's soldiers. If Rwanda admitted that its soldiers in the Congo,
their soldiers,
Now you have to ask yourself a question. If Rwandan soldiers are not in the Congo, if Rwanda is not implicated in the Congo, as Rwanda continues to deny, why in the world is Rwanda in a peace deal with the Democratic Republic of Congo in Washington, D.C.? What are they in a peace deal for if they're not in the Congo?
Exactly.
You really have to ask yourself that question, right?
Because analysts
I know we use the term,
actually...
they're allegedly in the Congo, they allegedly have soldiers, but if you're not there, why are you involved in a peace deal with the Democratic Republic of the Congo being facilitated by, the United States of America?
Yeah, because analysts have actually estimated up to 12,000, Rwandan troops in the eastern DRC, and this is as of March 2025.
So let me say this. On February the 21st, the United Nations Security Council, in a 15-0 vote, unanimous vote, we're talking about China, United States, we're talking about France, UK, all voted in this resolution 2773 at the United Nations. The key demand that they made, the entire world, represented by the UN Security Council, said Rwanda should withdraw its soldiers from the Democratic Republic of the Congo immediately, without any preconditions, and cease its support of the M23. This is the entire world that's represented by the UN Security Council in Resolution 2773. So we shouldn't be in a debate as to whether or not Rwanda is in the Congo. It puts us in a space of cognitive dissonance. Like, okay, you're not there, but you're having a peace deal, and the whole world says you're there. So we should put that to bed.
Okay, well,
right?
but Rwanda
soldiers are in the Congo.
Rwanda did say that the soldiers, are there to protect, their borders, from the war spilling over into Rwanda. So.
Oh, to protect their borders from the war spilling over into Congo. Into Rwanda.
Yeah.
And we believe that they're in a defensive posture. Okay. I think I will side with China, the United States. I will side with, these nations in this instance, Russia. The United States sanctioned Rwanda's top official, Paul Kagame's right-hand man, James Kabarebe. When Rwanda invaded Congo in 1996, the first time, Paul Kagame put James Kabarebe as the head of the Congolese military. Is that same James Kabarebe today, right, 30 years later, almost, that the United States has sanctioned because of his engagement in the Congo in terms of operation and control of the M23 militia? So we're going to believe what the facts or what the propaganda that's coming out of Kigali. The whole world is not stupid. We as a nonprofit or as an advocacy institution in Washington can say, hey, Rwanda is in the Congo, but when the United States says it, they sanction the top official. When the European Union says it, they sanction officials in Rwanda. When Russia, China, all the members of the UN Security Council say it, then there should be no debate about it after that.
Okay. Now let's still talk about, looking at the, decades of violence, in the eastern DRC. We know that they've actually suffered of militia violence for such a long time. Now, how do you think this agreement directly addresses those armed groups? And I'm not even talking about, the country and the people itself, the armed groups themselves.
Right. From what we've seen thus far, right, in this agreement meets the request or aspirations of the Congolese elite, President Tshisekedi and the people around him, in that it will preserve his power. Because absent of this agreement, it's not out of the question that the Rwanda-backed M23 would actually have marched all the way to Kinshasa, right? It was the intervention of Donald Trump's special advisor for Africa, Masad Boulos, who visited the region. And when he visited the region, he called for the halt of the march on the part of the M23. And this was best reflected in a strategic area in the Congo that the M23 had captured called Walikale, which is largest tin mine on the African continent, if not the world, where the M23 had captured Walikali, and the American company that was operating the tin mine there, Alphamine, had to shut down. And as a result of that, the price of tin on the global market skyrocketed. So Donald Trump's special advisor, Mossad Boulos, made a demand or a request that the M23 pull back from Walikali, and which they did, and the American company, Alphamine, started to operate again and stabilize the tin price, world's tin prices. So you have that march toward Kinshasa almost seemed inevitable. So Tshisekedi can preserve his power. That's what he gets out of this deal. The United States, as I just shared with you, they get to bring in investment dollars, and their corporations get to get access to Congo's minerals. Right now, as a result of this peace deal and the subsequent minerals deal, we have a company called Cobalt Metals. And the investors in Cobalt Metals are the billionaire class. Bill Gates, former co-founder of Microsoft, Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, Michael Bloomberg, who rules the Bloomberg empire out of New York. They're all vested in this company, Cobalt, that's going to get access to Congo's lithium that's located in Manono, large lithium deposits that are found there. So American investors, the billionaire class, their needs will be met out of this deal if it goes through as we see it. Then you have Rwanda. Rwanda, who's been trafficking Congo's minerals, its coltan and its tin and its gold into Rwanda, can now do that legally, according to this deal. And those minerals that are in the east of the Congo can be processed in Rwanda. So Paul Kagame and the Rwandan elites get what they want. What is not in this deal that we haven't seen, based on the reports, is the question of justice. Those 7,000 people who were killed when Rwanda and the M23 occupied the city of Goma, the hundreds of thousands of women who have been raped, the millions of Congolese who have been displaced. There isn't any sign of justice, any sign of reparations, any signs of reconciliation. We don't see that element being a part of the deal. Even the Emirates, even Qatar, who is shepherding this deal as well, they get to continue. They have economic interest in Rwanda, in building airports, economic interest in the Congo through gold. So their sovereign wealth fund get to be a player in this as well. So you have all of these. It's a typical Congo dynamic where you have all these major forces getting
it also
what
begs
they want out of the Congo at the expense of the people.
Yeah, it also begs the question: what assurances are in place, for safe return, and voluntary returns, of these people? Because according to reports, there are like 7 million people displaced, 100,000 newly uprooted this year alone. And figures also show that approximately 200,000 Rwandan refugees in DRC and 83,000 in the Congo, or that's Congo refugees in Rwanda, that you also
in
speak
Rwanda,
of. Yes, exactly. So, but let's go back. You're talking about, minerals and coltan, earlier. And, M23 has reportedly earned up to $800 million from coltan since April 2024. So do you think in this case that M23, with the amount of money that they've made, would actually back out or allow peace to reign? And do you think there are measures that are in place to even halt illicit mineral trafficking that's actually fueling the conflict?
Well, the short answer is no, because there is no mechanism there, right? And the big question is the extent to which the Rwanda-backed M23 will relinquish administrative control that it's exercised over the territories that it has captured. Remember, we have to go back to 2022. It's been 3 years now since they first captured Bunagana, right? They just recently captured Goma and Bukavu this year. So that is the big question. Will the pressure that will come from the United States be sufficient to dislodge the M23 from its administrative control that it now exercises over the east of Congo. And we'll have to see, because the answer is not readily evident.
But also, do you have an idea if there are any insurgent or even civilian communities that are actively pushing back against this peace deal?
Yes, I shared with you, we brought 4 women from the Congo who wanted to be included. These are women leaders that represent a broad cross-section of Congolese women activists who've been engaged in not only activism on the international level, but also, humanitarian support on the front lines in the Congo itself. You have the heads of the Catholic Church and the Protestant Church who made their tours. They visited the capitals, the Western capitals, Washington, Brussels, France, regional capitals, Kampala. Of course, they're in Kinshasa, Kigali. They even went to Qatar. They went to the United Nations. And they have a proposal on the table where they call a social contract, where they are offering a comprehensive plan for peace. We don't see that proposal being a part of the peace deal as well. Not to say that they're pushing back, but they have presented this social contract that hasn't been alluded to in the peace accord that we see to be signed on June 27th here in Washington with the ministers from the Congo and the DRC. And then, of course, there's to be a subsequent White House ceremony in July between the president of the DRC and the president of Rwanda. So there's some big gaps that are there that leave a lot of questions and really put into question whether or not this is going to be sustainable. That's highly questionable, what the United States is putting together with Rwanda and the DRC, if in fact it's something that can endure and last.
Okay. So what about other regional players, like Uganda, Burundi, even the African Union, those who feel sidelined, those who might want to play spoiler? Will there be pushbacks from people like that, organizations like that?
I don't say they want to play spoiler. Recall there are a number of processes that have been in play, right? We've had, for example, just at the start of this year, the East African community met, and they have a certain, what they call the Nairobi Accords that they put on the table. A central part of that is having the M23 sit down with talks with the Congolese government, which the Congolese government has refused to do. And then you had the long-standing Luanda Accords that was headed up by the president of Angola on behalf of the African Union, João Lourenço. And the Luanda Accords came to a halt when, in December 2024, Paul Kagame didn't show up to what was supposed to be a signing of a peace accord. It's been subsequently continued by the Togolese president, Faure Gnassingbe, who's been designated by the African Union, along with former heads of state like Kenyatta from Kenya, Obasanjo from Nigeria itself, and others who have trying to continue with the diplomatic effort around the Luanda Accords. And then, of course, you had the East African community meeting with the Southern African Development Community in Tanzania earlier this year, and they had some initiatives that came out. And of course, we talked about the initiative coming out of Qatar, where Qatar, they had brought President Kagame and President Tshisekedi to meet this spring, and they've continued meetings between the M23, representatives of M23, and representatives of the Congolese government. So you have all of these efforts that are on the way, but of course, they are all trumped by the Trump administration and his effort coming out of Washington. And that's what people are rallying around. So African Union has been sidelined, to a large extent. Regional players have been sidelined. The big players in the space, Qatar, right, and the United States. And they are
Maurice,
engaged because their interests, their economic interests are at stake in arguably the richest country on the planet that is filled with strategic minerals that are vital to global militaries, whether it's in Europe or the East or what have you, and vital to this whole energy transition.
Maurice,
right? So their interests are at stake,
sadly,
and they're taking the
time
lead.
is not on our side, Maurice. And I actually see what you did there, talking about, Trump being Trumped and all that. But then, just before we go, I just need you to answer in one word. Now, assuming signing occurs next week, when do you think the civilians on the ground will start to feel, peace? Weeks, months, or years? How long will it take? Just one word.
Definitely years.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Maurice Carney, Executive Director, Friends of the Congo, for joining us and speaking on this.
Thank you.